Welcome back to Tiny Grimes Games, and I'm here with another Star Wars Destiny video. And today I want to take a really deep look into the strategy and the way a high-level competitive tournament player thinks about the game, about their deck. There will definitely be some gameplay in this video, but I'm probably only going to go about 2 turns because the depth is going to be so deep. It might be overwhelming. We'll see. Hopefully it will work out. All right, so let's talk about how we start a game. I'm going to come into this game. I'm planning to play Kylo Dooku. So I have a general game plan of how my deck functions before I even get rolling, right? Already I'm thinking, okay, my goal theoretically in a game like this is to get a holocron out, probably on Dooku, figure out who they're going to target. They're probably going to target Kylo Ren, because Dooku is such a pain to kill. Once I figured out who they're targeting, I'm going to load up the other character, and then in the end game, it's going to be my 3 upgrade awesome character versus their mediocre character, and I should be able to win that. That's sort of the general game plan. However, one of the most important things about Star Wars Destiny is you have to be incredibly flexible based on the matchup, based on what the dice give you, based on what the cards give you. You have to be willing to alter and adjust your game plan. So before I'm thinking about mulligans, I'm thinking about what is my opponent going to play. And this is one of the most important things. I cannot stress this enough. This is what you should not do. Your opponent flips up their cards, you quickly drop your hand, you mulligan, and now you start thinking about a plan. No, that's not how we're going to approach this. All right, my opponent flips up the dreaded Jango Veers. So the first thing that I think about when I see this is, what is the game plan and the win condition for not just me, but for my opponent as well. So when I look at my opponent's deck, I go, okay, you know, I've seen this before. He's got a lot of guns. He's going to put a lot of gun upgrades on these guys. He's going to do a lot of damage. He's going to try to do it fast, because if you look at their health, 10 plus 9 is only 19. It's not that hard to burn them down to the ground, but they're going to try to burn you down to the ground. So their game plan is very predictable. They're going to put guns on the guys, and they're going to burn me to the ground as fast as humanly possible before I can really get going. My game plan, on the other hand, is to do something similar. I just talked about how my deck is so great in the end game. Well, that's great and all, but if there's no end game, that's irrelevant. So in this particular matchup, I need to be flexible. I need to audible a bit. I need to kill one of these guys fast. Theoretically, that target is Jango. Jango is way scarier than Veers, but you have to be flexible. If your opponent puts a weapon on Veers or shields up Jango right away, Veers probably becomes the primary target. And I've seen a lot of people, when they talk about Jango Veers, they say something like this. The way to beat Jango Veers is you kill Veers, and then you turn your attention to Jango. And that is wildly incorrect. The correct answer to that is you kill whichever one of them they show you that you should kill, right? And so that means if they put an upgrade on Veers, he's probably the guy you're killing. It's dictated by what they tell you. You can't go in with a strict plan of this is how I'm going to do this. That just doesn't work out quite right. All right, so from my perspective, I'm thinking I need to kill one of these guys fast. Then I go into an end game of probably Dooku versus the other one, and I probably have an advantage there. So how do I do that? How do I get as much damage as I can quickly? Sith Holocron, while just basically a busted card, probably not the best card in this matchup. Obviously, it's still good. If I get it, great. But I'm not going to hard mulligan for it here, even though I normally would, because the thought process is something like this. Let's think about those cards. Do they do a lot of burst damage? Does Force Training do a lot of burst damage? Not really. It's a good card. Does Force Choke do a lot of burst damage? No. It's more of a control card. Controlling one of the dice in this matchup temporarily, not the best. Jango doesn't really let you control his dice. So on top of that, Force Throw then also is one of these cards that maybe Force Throw is the best card in the game. Probably not, but it's real close. But against Jango, its value goes down a lot. They get to cheat out that roll without you being able to do force throw. So those cards, while great, are not the cards I'm really looking for. The card I would love in this particular matchup is Kylo's lightsaber on Dooku especially. That card can do some serious burst damage. And when they shield up, not if, when they're going to play dug in, every Veers deck has dug in it. Every Jango deck that has a red card has dug in it. Know that going in. When they shield up, you're going to be in good shape there. Having said that, another card that's really great in this matchup is actually Intimidate. Intimidate is basically a 3 damage event. They're going to play dug in, and they're going to rely on that. They're going to think that dug in is going to save them, and when you can intimidate those shields off, that's really, really great. So that's kind of our game plan. I'm going to assume my opponent is going to go after Kylo Ren, and I'll be loading up Dooku. If for some reason he gets some crazy roll early with a bunch of modifiers and decides to go for Dooku, well, then we shift our attention over to Kylo Ren and load him up. Now, some cards we need to be thinking about beyond just burst damage are both, what are the cards we need to fear from our opponent? What do we need to get ourselves? Let's talk about our opponent's deck. We're knowing that they're going to be playing dug in, so battlefield becomes even more important. We don't really want to give up the battlefield unless we have to because of cards like that. Another card that is just absolutely destructive is backup muscle. You need to know that you can't take damage early with Dooku against yellow decks. You just can't. Dooku really has more like 4 health late game because you have to assume if it goes late game, they get both backup muscles, and that's 6 damage. So what you're really thinking about is like, okay, I can't take a single damage. I'm always discarding whenever possible. Where sometimes in some matchups you might go, it's a pretty good card. I mean, it's just one. It's just one. I'll take the one. You need to be much more careful here, thinking backup muscle is a real reality. Another card you need to be aware of is Probe. They're probably going to have Probe, and while Probe isn't the worst, it can be a real issue. You can't just sit there with your events against Jango Veers assuming they're all safe. It's one of the few decks that runs Probe pretty reliably. You need to be thinking about that. Okay, so that's the cards in their deck we need to be worried about. In our deck, in addition to the cards I've already talked about, Deflect becomes really, really strong in this matchup. So what they're probably going to end up doing in a lot of turns is rolling Veers and waiting to react with Jango until we roll. And so if they have some damage on the board, and then they get to roll out Jango and resolve all of that damage, that becomes ultra destructive. So having Deflect is really great for spot handling Veers dice those first 2 turns before one of those guys dies. Dodge, on the other hand, while amazing, it's a little less good in this matchup early because, like I said, Jango gets to sort of get around Dodge, so there's usually not going to be that much damage out there. Also, we need to do damage to them early, so we need to be using some of our money. Using both money is probably not the best idea. Okay, so I think we've pretty well laid out our plan. We've laid out our opponent's plan. So let's move on to the draw step and mulliganing. Let's see how we think here. Oh my goodness. What a crazy draw. Look at this. So we got our Sith Holocron that I said we weren't going to hard mulligan for, but we sure as heck aren't tossing it back. It's still amazing. And we got plenty of things to pair with it. Now when we look at this, I think we're just going to keep Holocron and Force Throw and toss back the 2 Force Chokes. Like I said, I don't think Force Choke is especially great in this particular matchup. Mind Trick is another one of those cards that it's not really for this matchup necessarily, and if it was, it'd be for quite a bit later as your opponent gets lots and lots of dice out. So we're going to chuck it. We're left with a pretty solid start here with these 2 cards. So we're going to drop 3 more, and wow, look at this. This is a great start for us. We did not get our Kylo Saber, which makes me very sad. We're not going to have quite as much burst as we wanted. But both Isolation and Deflect are very useful in this matchup. We already talked about Deflect getting rid of range damage. Isolation also gets rid of range damage. It also kind of wrecks Jango even if he misses, right? Jango misses. but he's going to be doing a reroll, so we can pluck off his die. It's important to remember that the Jango Veers deck is going to do rerolls, right? If they hit some bad rolls, you can't just be like, woo, they crapped out this turn. Now, they're going to reroll and they're going to do damage. The game's not going to go that long. Both of you need to know that. If you can prevent damage, you should be doing it. Okay, so the next step is the opponent's mulligan. It can be tempting just to do your own mulligan and not even pay attention to what your opponent is doing. You need to be thinking very carefully about how many cards your opponent throws back. So if I'm the opponent, I'm looking at this hand and I'm going, no, don't want arm to the teeth early. Logistics is interesting. Might be worth keeping one, but I don't think so. We'll chuck them both back. We've got a dug in. We've got a blaster. That's great. But if you are looking at it from the perspective of the Dooku deck, you just see they mulliganed 3 cards. Okay, so you need to be thinking, like, what do they have? If they mulliganed 3 cards, what could they have left? Most likely they have a weapon. If they're not mulliganing, if they mulligan all 5, you know they didn't have a weapon. But if they mulligan 3, they must have a weapon, or they would have mulliganed 4, right? It's too dangerous to not get a weapon turn 1 if you're Jango Veers. So they've got a weapon. And then you're trying to figure out, like, what's the other card? And the choices seem to be stuff like dug in, he doesn't like you, backup muscle, another weapon. So you should have a pretty decent idea about their hand from their mulligan. Like, if they have kept 4 cards, I'd be pretty confident they had 2 weapons, probably a backup muscle also. Some of the really great cards. And that comes from knowing, how each card functions in each matchup, and that's what we're trying to talk about here. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish up this this Jango player's turn here. Let's draw them up. Let's actually give them their dice back, too. We stole their dice from them, so you would be surprised at what they were running. Okay, so now we got to talk about game plan, battlefield, all these kind of choices. So I've brought this battlefield, the Separatist base battlefield, or Mos Eisley spaceport. It's just basically my deck tends to go a little bit later. They're running Frozen Wastes, which is a fast deck battlefield, right? Remove a character die. That can be dangerous. So let's see who wins the roll-off here. I would say I'm hoping that I win so I can choose their battlefield and take the shields. Against Jango Veers, I want the shields, and I don't want them to have the shields. I already talked about how you really want to kill them quickly. It is 4 to 4. We're going to roll again. The interesting thing is I've seen Jango Veers players go both ways on this, as far as do they desperately want their battlefield or not. So it looks like they win. And the Jango Veers player says, I'm going to resolve these turns so fast. I'm taking my battlefield anyway. By spaceport. We're going to go with this. It also lets them do things like dug in turn 1. And so when you see your opponent claim the battlefield right off that, you need to be thinking about several things, right? So they're giving up 2 shields. They're giving up a net of 4 shields, in fact. They're not taking 2 shields and giving you 2 shields. That's huge. That tells you one of 2 things. One, they really want their battlefield. They feel like it's very helpful to their deck. Or 2, they don't care because they have a way to remove those shields right away with something like On the Hunt or Intimidate, or they have dug in or something like Defensive Position, some sort of battlefield card where they're planning to use that against you. All right, so now, next question. Where do we put these shields? This is always an interesting question with this particular deck. Generally, I would say put it on your best character, right? But normally the way Dooku Kylo works is they're going to kill Kylo first, period, because he's it's so difficult to kill Dooku with his ability of being able to discard cards to give him shields. So he has basically infinite shields. So there's not a huge reason to shield him because they're going for Kylo. You want to keep Kylo alive as long as possible. However, when you're playing Jango Veers, they can get big bursty rolls that could actually kill Dooku out of nowhere. So in this particular matchup, I tend to concentrate on that and make them think this. Okay. I'm not going to go for Dooku. I'm just not going to do it. It's not worth it. He's got 12. Even if I get a pretty bursty first roll, it's still just not worth it to me. And so that's the mindset that I'm going in when I choose these shields. I'm also looking at my hand and thinking, I have 2 upgrades that are force powers. What I could do is go Holocron onto Dooku, resolve Holocron onto Kylo, and put one on him. But Kylo's going to die really fast in this matchup. Like, really, really fast. We are not going to be putting a single card on Kylo this whole game unless something really bizarro happens. It's just not going to be a reality. Okay, so let's turn back to the Jango player's turn. He's going to go ahead and do just put a blaster on Jango right from the start. That tells me, it's a pretty clear sign to me, like, okay, Jango's the target. He put something on Jango, and Jango was already the target. Okay, that's something good to know. Now, the Jango player is going to be kind of cheeky here and not play dug in right away. He's going to wait and see if he can get us to commit to him and then dug in and do a ha-ha, gotcha kind of scenario. And one thing to know about Jango is not going to roll until Jango is reacting to you. So one of the nice things, one of the best ways to handle Jango early is to roll out as fast as possible so they can't weapon up on Jango. And that's another reason why the Jango player does want that battlefield right from the start. They want to be able to weapon up immediately before you can start rolling stuff out. So they're going to go ahead and roll their Veers. They're not just going to roll Jango. That's very unlikely that they're going to do that early. Could have put it on the hunt down, but like I said, they want to save the money for the dug in. All right, so they got a bad roll. That helps. I think Dooku is going to go here. We've got the deflect. This is really a perfect scenario. Veers has no damage to surprise resolve with Jango. So Jango can't do one of his monster rolls. Ooh, and look at that. 3 damage right out of the gate. So now the Jango player, of course, is going to, do his little trick. He's going to react. We knew that was coming. No problem. Oh, my goodness. Total garbage rolls. So, as the Dooku player, this is my thought process here. Goodness, why don't I have Feel Your Anger, right? That would just be so amazing. It would just steal a whole turn from him. And I also know, while it looks great right now, he's going to reroll. I mean, the odds that he rerolls something like this again are infinitesimal. So something bad is going to happen. I am going to take a lot of damage. So the Jango player says, okay, I don't need 2 on the hunts, I don't think. I'm just going to go ahead and reroll this right now. I'm even going to leave this one because I'm so confident that these dice have enough base damage. I don't even need to worry. And he was right. He was definitely right. Look at all that damage. But again, as the Kylo Dooku player, I look at this and I go, yep, all basics. Like, he cannot hit Kylo for hard... he can barely hit Dooku for any damage this turn if he went that route. He's just not going to do that. He's not going to go that route. I also have a really interesting problem as the Kylo player now. What do I do here? I could take 5. Kylo's half dead. I could deflect this 2. Make it so I only take 3, which is pretty reasonable, actually. But then I lose the possibility to pluck off one of the dies anchoring all the pluses next turn, but it's not quite as relevant. So I think that's what we're going to do. Go ahead and deflect. And we're going to make it clear right now, right here. We're going for Jango. Boom. Jango player says, okay, all right. I mean, he's got 3 damage showing. But I've got 3 damage showing. He already removed 1. I might as well just resolve my damage right here. It's going to get me the battlefield. I'll be able to pluck off Kylo's die pretty easy. And I'm not going for Dooku. That's madness. So he goes for Kylo. All right. We get to do 3 damage. That's pretty amazing. What's really cool about this particular deck is you don't have to worry. Like if you had a bunch of pluses on Kylo, like if it was raised die, you really need to roll that out before you did anything. We have options here. As the Dooku player, I'm looking at this and saying, I don't think he has any removal. I don't think he has electroshock. I don't think he doesn't like you, because he would have done it already. This 2 damage is a big side I think he would have already gone ahead and used that. So I have the decision point here. What do I do here? If I could roll Kylo's dice, hoping to get melee and make this faster action, right? Then I could resolve all the melee together. But if I do that, what is most likely for my opponent? I think most likely is that he passes on the shield, he grabs the battlefield, and he yanks 2 damage off of me. He yanks this die away, which does 2 damage. And I don't like that. So I think I'm looking at this and thinking, let's resolve this damage we have showing now. And then, yeah, he might be able to pull off one of Kylo's dice, but at least we've done 3 damage. And if he has something like Dug In, well, he would be able to play it next turn anyway, right? It's not like he wasn't going to have the battlefield and play it. He would have to give up on this shield, though, which is something. But I think we're just going to take the damage that we've got and just try to kill this guy. We're going to try to burst him down. Okay, so Jango's hurting. Jango is not going to take the battlefield yet because he wants to wait till Kylo rolls out. Kylo never rolls. Boom, victory there. And so the Dug In can wait. So go ahead and take that shield up and see what happens. Kylo player. Yeah, we might as well roll, right? Like, what are we going to do here? We could actually take the battlefield. They didn't Dug In. We don't know that they have Dug In, right? But there's a good chance they'll get it between this turn and next turn. If we were just to take the battlefield here, their turn is essentially over unless they have a 1-cost upgrade they want to put out. We lose out on the ability to resolve damage with Kylo. But what are the odds we get 2 dice that are good for Kylo, right? What are the odds of that? So we're thinking about this and then going, okay, not good. We're going to have to do a reroll. So let's say we get 1 good die, 1 garbage die. It gets removed. We are left with these 2 dice. Are we happy to discard not 1 but probably 2 to try to make something out of this? Because these dice aren't great. So I think we are actually. I think we're fine chucking an isolation and say a mind probe because we have so many other cards we want. We really want Kylo's saber desperately. We would love another deflect. Isolation is okay. It's not bonkers good. So I think we are going to do that. Because of that, we'll go ahead and roll out the Kylo and see what happens. I mean, who knows? Whoops, this is still out there. Oh, yep, there you go. So, looking at that, this guy's like, okay, so here's my theory for Jango. If I take this, I deprive him of 2 damage. He's probably going to hit me for something, take off the shield, and then I can immediately Dug In, and I don't even waste his shield. So, and I'll have a resource left next turn. So that player goes ahead, removes that, and here we are. Remember when I said Kylo's deck was going to have 2 garbage dice left? Well, here we are. We'll start with the isolation. If we hit if we hit the special here, we're in business. We did. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. So, what do we want? Do we want the mind probe or the force throw? Oh wow, what a crazy decision point. Let's go through it. So if we get the force throw, it is consistent 1 to 2 damage, which is great. It'll keep Kylo alive slightly longer. I'm looking at Mind Probe, though, and I'm thinking... So first of all, usually I would take almost a snap decision to take Force Throw. Easy. Why are you even thinking about that? In this particular matchup, where my goal is to blitz down one of these guys as fast as possible, and if I can, I pretty much win, Mind Probe looks way more reasonable. Plus, if I do this, pay the 1 for Mind Probe, I could potentially jack him for 3 right here. And that's another question. Is that worth it? I would have to give up the $1, which I could just save for the Force Throw, and just pay for that, which I probably wouldn't because of the Holocron. But I would have enough to play the Saber. But what if I toss the Force Throw to go in for 2 rolls on the Mind Probe and 2 rolls on Kylo? The problem is Kylo takes money and this one side on the Mind Probe takes money, and the Mind Probe can't roll money. So the odds that we get damage aren't that great. It's 2 shots at a 1 in 3, and then 1 shot at a 1 in 6, but we could get a shield. We could look in their hand and get a little bit more damage, maybe. We don't know. We don't think they have a He Doesn't Like You with how they played that turn. So they probably have some. They could have a probe. That's about the only zero cost thing I can think of that they would have. So it's really 2 sides of one. And with all that rationale, I think we do it. I think we chuck in the Mind Probe, pay the 1, and our opponent goes, what? No, that ain't right. Okay, that's not the worst side, but we're not going to stick with that. We're actually going to toss this really nice force throw because we're going to try to blitz him down. Oh, look at that. That was a luck shot. So we do 4 damage to Django. Big smiles. Big smiles. Django's almost dead, and it's turn 1. Boy, did that ever work out for us. Okay. Let's move into turn 2 then. Goes to the discard. Look carefully both at your discard and your opponent. Don't just do your stuff like you're in a vacuum. So you're going to watch our opponent. Our opponent is going to keep 2 cards. I don't think they need On the Hunt desperately here. They need some weapons. They're going to keep the rifle. They're going to keep the dug-in. So you know, okay, they're chucking On the Hunt. They must have another upgrade, right? Are they really going to keep 2 cards and chuck an upgrade and not have an upgrade? That seems highly unlikely. And I'm not sure that they have a dug-in. They had some moments to play it last turn, and they chose not to. So if they don't, I've got a big smile going. I'm like, I might just kill Django this turn, and basically the game is over. We're going to keep the Holocron. I know we chucked the Force Throw, but we've got a lot of other Force powers in there. I think we can be okay just drawing up 4, keeping our Holocron. Nothing else. It scares the heck out of our opponent. We got a really bad roll unless our opponent rolls weird. So this is a troubling, very troubling draw. All right. Let's see what our opponent gets. This is a really weird way to play, right? Looking at your opponent's hand. It's a lot easier when you look at your opponent's hand. But we know that they should have 1 weapon already. Like that's just a fact. Okay. So everyone gets their money. This is another thing to be very aware of. Your opponent gets 2 money, right? Like, be careful of that. We have 2. Our opponent has 3. Okay, they're going to play some weapons probably. And in fact, they do. Start out right out of the gate. This is a really strong play for a Django deck like this. So when Django rolls, he's going to have 4 dice that are resolvable immediately. And whatever is out here with Veers. So this is really, really scary play. Kylo could just die. And the Veers rolled terrible again. Whoa. Everything is with us. So, it's a really difficult spot here. If we just... And in fact, the Django Veers player may have made an error there. If we just roll out Dooku, and he responds with Django, but we roll a bunch of damage, Django's dead. The only way to save him would be if he then responds with like a He Doesn't Like You as his second action, or an electroshock, or a dug in. And if that's the case, he loses his whole ability to do something awesome, and then we dodge if he rolls amazing. So we're going to go ahead and try to force his hand here. We could play the Holocron, but we don't have anything to do anyway, so let's just try to threaten just a win. If Django dies here, we win. So we rolled terrible. That's unfortunate. That allows Django to say, okay, no problem. You rolled terrible. If I roll big here, Kylo's dead. Kylo could die before he activates a second time. That's kind of insane. Don't die, Kylo. Oh, the poor Django Veers player. Now he's wrecked. He's totally wrecked. Because we have this dodge here. So even if he gets his giant reroll and rocks the universe, he's dead. So here's the question. Do we just flip to the Mind Probe and threaten lethal? I mean, it's kind of hard not to do that. It looks like such a beautiful play. Our opponent could have a dug in, which would be bad for us. But if he does, we chew through the whole thing. It's his turn then. He doesn't have anything. We still have our dodge. We still have Kylo to roll. Though he's probably going to pull off a Kylo die at that point. What we could do is roll Kylo, see what happens, and then re-roll. We don't need 2 holocrons here. So we can toss one of them to re-roll. It's a really interesting decision point. If our opponent had a way to handle that Dooku die, he probably wouldn't have played it. It wouldn't have been worth it. But he could still handle this. So I think the smart play here is just to roll out Kylo and see what happens. We could have put a holocron on him, but again, we're not putting anything on him. Let's be very clear. Nothing is going on him. All right, it's time. It's time to dig in. Digging in gives this player options. They could now claim the battlefield if they needed to. They could not claim the battlefield because it's not that big of a deal. Because if your opponent can claim the battlefield before you can get your dug in off, you don't control that battlefield anymore. Okay, so Dooku player's looking at this. Okay, it's disappointing, right? They're down to 3 cards. The Mind Probe is way less good. They're going to re-roll. So just flipping that is actually not that useful. So you know what? Let's go ahead and do it all. Tossing a holocron. Here's a place where Jedi Mind Trick could be reasonable. But it's really not worth playing yet. Oh my goodness. Nut rolling for days. I mean, this is 5, 7, 8. Like, that wins the game, right? And so the Dooku player is basically going, come on, man. No awesome removal. Like, what could the Jango deck have? It could have a He Doesn't Like You. Pull off that. Could have an Electroshock. Pull off one of these guys. But instead, it has nothing. Jango's dead. So they go, okay, yeah, I'll resolve that. Actually, no, Jango's not dead, right? He's got 6. There's no way to kill him. There's only 5. So Jango player sees that and says, we need to do our one last hurrah, reroll. Maybe we can get such a big roll here that even if Jango dies on his way out, something amazing is going to happen. And it did. I mean, that's pretty good. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hit the jackpot. But we got the dodge in hand. Oh, so rough. We do have to know, though, that if we do play the dodge, this die is going away. But we're fine with that. I mean, this game was really easy to commentate because it was so lopsided. Everything just went right for the Dooku player here. But there, boom, gone. 1 die against this whole board. Jango player's going, okay, Jango's dead. No matter what, right? I pull that off. It's 2, 3, 6. He's dead. So what's the right play here? Reroll to make him better? Probably not. You've got the weapon that you're going to probably want to play. So they're just going to take the battlefield, take some of the damage. Oh, actually, I don't get to kill him, right? Because I'm a resource short. So 2 resources short, in fact. So it looks like he's going to be fine. He's going to make it out of this after all. Let's see if that's actually a reality. Yeah, he's going to live. He's going to live. But we do get to make things hard for him because he does have a resource side. So we get to flip that one to the resource. Take the resource. I'll resolve that one. Whoop, so that's 3. Shields are gone. And then we get to do something really cool. Play Enrage. I actually don't want him to take damage like I talked about. Whoop, so I'll discard the Mind Trick to do his ability to get a resource. Resolve that one on Jango. And Jango is doing okay. Put that back on Dooku. Jango is alive. I mean, what if they get a dug in? Could change everything. All right, so back to start a turn. Dooku player says, there's no options. I'm just going to draw 5. Now remember, watch your opponent's hand. They're not going to get rid of either of these 2 cards. They're amazing. So neither of those cards is going away. That tells us they probably have an upgrade because Jango's dying. Veers needs something. So they're going to have an upgrade. They get an Electroshock. They've got some stuff. As you can tell, this is not my list. I would never play infantry grenades on the list. Okay. Everyone gets their resources. Django Veer's player is up. Poor Django. So, what are the choices here for them? They really don't have any. They could put the F-11 rifle down. I don't think he can, though. He needs to be able to electroshock if possible. So just roll Veers out. Try to get a God roll together. This is dangerous, though. Deflect, if your opponent has it, could just win the game. And in fact, we do have deflect. All right, so here's the question. Do we let Django roll, or do we do something like pass, knowing we have a huge advantage, and all we have to do is get them to roll into a deflect? That's really what I'm thinking about here. It's like, what if I just let them roll into a deflect? That sounds great, but it gives your opponent more time to dug in. If they had dug in, they'd have played it, right? They had to, knowing that they could roll into a deflect dead Django. But they didn't. So, it's really interesting. Do I roll out letting Django potentially resolve like 8 damage and killing Kylo when I could just kill him with a deflect? I think the answer is yes, because I'm going to win anyway. And he could pass. A really smart player would probably play out some cheap thing and then pass anyway. Oh my goodness, that's a really bad roll. So, here comes Django. Can Django just light up the world here? It's possible. Django, he did it! He Django'd! He Django'd all over the place. So, boom, boom, boom. Who needs resources? We can do 6 damage before you die. Poor Kylo. Kylo got wrecked. Kylo got blown up. So now, Dooku player has to look at this board and say, okay, he's going to reroll and kill Kylo unless I can do something. Even if I can do something, that still might happen unless he doesn't roll good enough and I can deflect to kill the Django to leave Kylo alive. He cannot play an electroshock. His only removal he can play is he doesn't like you. So it's a really interesting cat and mouse game here of, do I turn that die to the 2 to kill Django or not? And it's so hard because I think you have to assume that they have the he doesn't like you at this point. They've seen 11 cards. They really haven't seen any good removal yet. They've been discarding for removal. I think you have to assume that they do play. They also have a shield here just sitting here waiting to shield up Django. So we're going to go ahead and roll, assuming they've got something. All right. See what happens. We got the 1 damage to kill Django. We know it doesn't matter because he's just going to shield up. So, in fact, he does. Shield up. Okay. They can't play dug in. They can't play shock. They can't really do much of anything. I think at this point, I think you take the damage knowing that you have the deflect win scenario. I think that's just a really strong play. If you didn't have the deflect here, I think you just do the reroll. But with the deflect, or you could no mercy here. This is actually a pretty great spot for no mercy, since all we have to do is kill Django. That's it. We kill Django, and I feel like we've got this game won. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's no mercy here. I don't love no mercy here, but it's going to let us kill Django. Resolve that one. We only have to discard 1 card. Discard Force Training. And then Django's dead. So that's not a terrible way to kill Django. Django's dead. Just Veers. Veers player says, I mean, it's not really worth pulling off one of these yet. I need to figure out which one I need to pull off. So let's go ahead and logistics. Take some money. We have options now. We can shock. We can just put another weapon down. We could play the backup muscle, the Dooku killer. The backup muscle will help us finish off Kylo. Kylo player says, let's leave our force choke. It's really interesting because we know they want to resolve before us. So maybe use the force is better to keep around. But we don't have any money. We'd have to get money to use it. We definitely want to keep the deflect. I'd like to get another force power out there. I'm going to re-roll not all of these. I'm not going to re-roll that one because it's so strong right here to become about anything. Oh my goodness. That's just brutal. Again, the Django player getting wrecked. He's looking at this and going, I mean, I kind of have to Frozen Waste here, right? Like, I could Electroshock, but if I Electroshock one of these dice, he gets to do some really amazing things. Maybe he Electroshocks the 2. Yeah, I guess he can Electroshock the 2, and then no matter what I do, he's got a way to handle another die. So he has to stay alive, right? So Electroshock the 2. If I do this, this is another thing we didn't talk about yet. Kylo's ability against this deck is really bad. There's a lot of 1s and quite a few 0s. So we did think, though, with the way they kept their hand, that they had 1 upgrade. And the odds aren't terrible that they got another one because they just don't have, they hadn't seen that many yet. There were jetpacks left. There was an F-11 rifle. There were the holdouts, but he did play a holdout. No, that was last year when they played the holdout. So I think the odds, it's almost a certainty that there are 2 upgrades left. So here's the choice. You flip that to the special to take 3, or you go for the luck shot there. So I don't think you do that. I think you take the given. So they take the battlefield, pull off the Kylo die, and we zap Veers for 3. And things are looking not too shabby here. Where did our holocron die go? Over here? I didn't roll it this turn. Okay, I guess I didn't roll the holocron die this turn. That's some great video right there. Okay, we're going to pass then. Looking at our own mulligan, these cards are fine. We're going to keep them both. Just grab 3 new ones. Not bad cards. We can finally get our Kylo Saber, which is still great, but less like must have it. Probably won't play it because we've got the deflect. On the other side, Infantry Grenades is a garbage card that's only valuable in any way in a very small circumstance. The backup muscle's needed. The rifle's fine. Big trouble coming for the... Oh, that was not what I meant to do. All right. Oh, they got 2 tactical masteries. That's really interesting. Okay. So the Veers player is up. We saw that they kept both of their cards. Again, we think one of them is an upgrade. So Kylo's pretty happy. One of them is gotta be he doesn't like you, right? Like, that's what I'm thinking. It has to be he doesn't like you. If it was backup muscle, he'd have played it already. But he just didn't have a moment. Okay. So this player is going to go 2 for the rifle. Try to tactical mastery. Kill Kylo and put some damage on Dooku. For us, we're unsure here. We're thinking, unless he happens to have tactical mastery in his hand, and he's willing to pay 1 for it, we're going to be able to deflect pretty much whatever he does. So we're going to keep the money. We're not going to spend money on any of this. So then the question becomes, do you roll out Kylo or do you roll out Dooku first? What are the advantages and disadvantages? Kylo's dice, pretty weak. Basically a 1 and a 2 and a 1. We've got a mind probe that the earlier in the turn we get out, the better. Let's go ahead and do that. Maybe we get our force choke going also. Oh, wow. So we got the force choke, but we get no damage. So that's not that scary. But I got to say, the discard sides are terrifying for the Veers player because now he just has the 1 roll. And he is going to tactical mastery, knowing it's quite likely there's some sort of mitigation over on the other side. He's already gotten dodged once. That felt real bad. Roll out. Big roll. Could do some serious work here. Oh, just savagely beaten this game. So cruel. All right. So, I think the answer is just rip all the cards away, and then the turn goes rip. Oh, no, wait. They get another action. So what's that action going to be? It's got to be a reroll, right? It's got to be a reroll. You see the cards going away. Chuck that. What are you going to reroll everything? I mean, the odds are really good Veer's rolls aside. So I kind of feel like you can leave the blaster, which you don't have the money anyway. So you leave the F11, roll the Veer sides. Maybe you should have left the money even. Are you kidding me? Oh my goodness. Dooku is dancing in the aisles with how terribly this game has gone. Interesting question here, though. I think you do the Dooku die rather than the Mind Probe die. Because he's going to pull a character die, but no. The Mind Probe die just becomes too bad. Yeah, it's still 2 damage. No, it's 0 damage because you're pulling the cards away, of course. Okay, so there we go. I mean, the Veers player is stuck. An easy play here would just be claim, but that's the wrong play. The Veers player needs to try to get the most bang for his buck for his claim. So just going to roll out Kylo. We want him to make a decision now before we reroll, if at all possible. Kylo's special, of course, is worthless right now. All right, a big pile of blanks. We hear a pass from Django. 2 resources. We could deflect 1. That may be something we do. We could actually just get some money from Enrage, which we'll probably do. But I think we're going to spend 1. Go ahead and put the holocron back. Force choke. Pay the 1 to roll it out. It could be a damage. Any damage at this point is good. Wow, we're good at rolling blanks. Pierce passes and says, "You ever going to roll anything good here?" All right, fine. Let's put holocron back on. Another pass. And now mobilize. Chuck that and see which die he picks off. That's basically what's happening. But we have 3 more rerolls if we need them. Okay, well, that die's worthless. This is already a 2 showing. So he says, all right, well, I'll take it. If I get dug in now, it could be fine. Question is, can we just do 6? And we've got 2, 4, 6, 7 we could actually do. So, and 8 with the deflect. So we've got a lot of chances. We're actually going to start by giving up the saber. That, remember we talked about how much we wanted that. And now here it is getting chucked. Very interesting how that works out. How you have to be flexible. Oh, there's 4 of the 6. There's 5 of the 6. We flip that. That's it. That's game. We got there. All right, so flip that to the 1. Ping him for 1. Boink. Let's see if we got there. See if my math was right. 2 more. Pay 1 for this one. And then the last one is the deflect off of the enrage. So we enrage, get 1, pay for the deflect his own die back. And that's it. That's game. So that is how high-level play works. It's really thinking about every single detail of everything that happens, right? It's what could I draw? What did my opponent discard? What did they leave back in their hand? This affects then other decision points, like will Kylo's side give you damage? Every game is different. Every game you have to be flexible. I put out a Mind Probe instead of a Force Throw. Force Throw is amazing, but if you got to burn someone out fast, a Mind Probe can be real good. So hopefully this video gave you a little insight. I apologize if it was too much depth, but I think it's going to prove useful for a lot of people out there. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time on Tiny Grimes Games.